Sometimes the heaviest burden isn't what we carry. It's what we never picked up. Sometimes the loudest scream comes from the silence we chose. And sometimes, 1 second before everything changes forever, we realize that our silence was never golden. It was just cruel. This is the story of Marcus and Elena, of love letters that turned into text messages, of words that were typed but never sent, and of a silence so profound that it echoed louder than any argument they'd ever had. This is about the weight of the unsaid, the tragedy of perfect timing that came just one heartbeat too late. Marcus met Elena on a Tuesday that felt like fate had finally decided to pay attention. She was reading Neruda in a coffee shop, her fingers tracing the words like they were precious stones. And when she looked up and caught him staring, her smile was the kind that rewrites your entire understanding of what happiness could feel like. For 3 years, they built something beautiful together. Elena was the kind of woman who left sticky notes with poetry quotes on his bathroom mirror, who danced in grocery store aisles when her favorite song came on the speakers, who could turn the most ordinary moments into memories worth keeping. She had this way of seeing magic in the mundane that made Marcus feel like he was living in a movie where every scene mattered. But Marcus was different. He was methodical, careful with his words, the kind of man who drafted text messages 3 times before sending them, while Elena poured her heart out in long voice messages and handwritten letters. Marcus measured his affection in careful doses, believing that love was something to be preserved, not spent freely. Their communication styles should have been complementary. Her warmth balancing his caution, her spontaneity softening his structure. Instead, they became a source of quiet tension that neither of them knew how to address. Elena would send paragraphs about her day, her dreams, her fears, and Marcus would respond with brief acknowledgments. That's nice. Sounds good. Okay. The cracks started showing 6 months ago. Elena began mentioning feeling alone even when they were together, talking about how she felt like she was having conversations with herself. Marcus heard her, but he didn't understand the urgency. He thought love was about consistency, about showing up, about the big gestures on birthdays and anniversaries. He didn't realize that love lived in the small spaces between words, in the responsiveness to daily joys and sorrows, in the willingness to engage with someone's inner world even when it seemed trivial. The final month was particularly hard. Elena's mother had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, and she was struggling with the weight of watching someone she loved slowly disappear. She reached out to Marcus repeatedly, long messages about her fears, her sadness, her need, for someone to just acknowledge that what she was going through mattered. But Marcus was dealing with his own pressures at work, a promotion that required all his attention, and he kept telling himself he'd respond properly later, when he had time to say the right thing. But later never came. The messages piled up like unopened letters, each one a small plea for connection that Marcus mentally bookmarked for a conversation that kept getting postponed. Elena's messages gradually became shorter, then less frequent, until finally, they stopped altogether. That's when the silence began. Not the comfortable quiet of 2 people who understood each other, but the painful void of 2 people who had forgotten how to reach across the space between them. Thursday, November 14th, 8:47 p.m. Marcus was finally ready. He had finished the IR project, gotten the promotion, and cleared his schedule. He had spent the entire evening crafting the perfect message to Elena, an apology, an explanation, a promise to do better. His finger was literally hovering over the send button when his phone buzzed with an incoming message. Elena. I can't do this anymore, Marcus. I've been drowning, and you haven't even noticed I was underwater. I needed you to care enough to respond, to engage, to show up emotionally. But your silence has been the loudest thing in our relationship. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. I need space to figure out if love is supposed to feel this lonely. This is me saying goodbye, not just to us, but to hoping you'll suddenly start seeing me. Take care of yourself. Marcus stared at the screen, his unsent message suddenly feeling pathetic in comparison to her raw honesty. His carefully crafted words about being busy, about caring in his own way, about promising to change. All of it crumbled in the face of her pain. He had been composing an apology for his silence while she was composing her goodbye because of it. 1 second. 1 second was all that separated his attempt at connection from her decision to disconnect. If he had sent his message at 8:46, would she have seen it before typing hers? Would knowing that he was finally ready to engage have changed her mind? The timing was so cruel, it felt deliberate, like the universe was showing him exactly what his silence had cost. He tried calling immediately. It went straight to voicemail. He tried texting back, but the responses felt hollow after her devastating honesty. "Elena, please. I was just about to. How do you explain that you were on the verge of doing the right thing when someone has already suffered the consequences of you not doing it for months?" The weeks that followed were filled with a silence. That was entirely different from the one Marcus had grown comfortable with. This silence was oppressive, full of all the words he should have said, heavy with the realization that love isn't just about feeling. It's about responding, engaging, showing up consistently in the small moments that make up a relationship. Marcus found Elena's old messages, the ones he had mentally filed away for later responses. Reading them now, he could see the arc of her emotional journey, from hopeful sharing, to desperate reaching, to resigned withdrawal. He had been so focused on saying the right thing that he had forgotten that sometimes just saying something, anything that showed he was listening, would have been enough. He learned that Elena had moved across the country to help care for her mother, whose condition had worsened rapidly. Through mutual friends, he heard that she was doing well, finding peace in the clarity of her decision, rebuilding her sense of self-worth after months of feeling invisible in her own relationship. Marcus tried writing letters, actual handwritten letters, but never sent them. What could he say? That he had learned to appreciate her voice by losing it? That he understood the value of emotional responsiveness only after the cost of his silence had been fully calculated? That he was sorry for treating her attempts at connection like items on a to-do list, rather than gifts from someone who loved him? The irony wasn't lost on him that now, when it was too late, he found himself thinking of Elena constantly. Every sunset she would have photographed and shared, every song that would have reminded her of a memory, every small joy or worry she would have texted him about. He noticed them all now, felt their absence like phantom limbs. He began to understand that his silence hadn't been about being careful or thoughtful. It had been about fear. Fear of emotional intimacy. Fear of not knowing the perfect response. Fear of the messiness that comes with truly engaging with another person's inner world. He had thought that by saying less, he was protecting their relationship from his imperfections. Instead, he had starved it of the very thing that makes love alive: genuine, imperfect, real-time connection. 6 months later, Marcus received a wedding invitation in the mail. Elena was marrying someone she had met while caring for her mother, a man who, according to their mutual friends, wrote her good morning texts every day and remembered every story she told him. Marcus stared at the invitation for a long time, and for the first time since that November night, he smiled. Not because he was happy she was gone, but because he was genuinely happy she had found someone who understood that love lives in the small responses, in the daily choice to engage, in the willingness to show up emotionally even when it's inconvenient. He wrote one final message to Elena, not to send, but to finally say what he should have been saying all along. "Thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth about my silence. I hope he listens to you the way you deserve to be heard. I hope your mother's good days outnumber the difficult ones. I hope you dance in grocery stores and leave poetry notes, and never doubt again that you deserve someone who responds to your heart as eagerly as you share it. Sometimes the most profound lessons come wrapped in the deepest regrets. If this story touched something in you, if you recognized yourself in Marcus or Elena, maybe it's time to check your own silence. Maybe there's someone in your life who's been reaching out, waiting for you to reach back. Maybe love isn't about finding the perfect words. Maybe it's just about finding any words that say, I see you, I hear you, you matter to me. Don't let your silence become someone else's goodbye. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply reply.